Hello and welcome to the 2021 ARC World Industry Forum. I'm Harry Forbes from ARC. Welcome to this session entitled Open Process Automation Report from the Labs. As you know, we're not in Orlando this year. We'd like to be in Orlando, but we're not. And we're having a virtual session rather than a face-to-face one. So our idea for making this session worthwhile in a virtual sense was to go and travel around the world virtually. So in the next 50 minutes, we're going to go and visit literally around the world 3 different labs that are working to develop and perfect open process automation technology. We're going to go to the Middle East OPA testbed of Saudi, Schneider Electric, and Saudi Aramco. We're going to go to the I4O ERDI test lab in Perth, Western Australia. We're going to go to the ExxonMobil OPA testbed in the Woodlands outside of Houston, Texas. So I hope you'll enjoy the fact that we're having a virtual meeting and therefore we can travel around the world in one session and still have time for live question and answer with all the people that we'll meet on our trip around the world. So let's begin. Our first journey is from our location in Orlando, and it's about 7,000 miles or 12,000 plus kilometers to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, where we're going to visit the Schneider Electric Saudi Aramco facility in Dhahran. And we're going to meet Abdullah Al-Khalifah from Saudi Aramco and Nidal Ghazawi from Schneider Electric. So let's take the first leg of our trip.
Welcome everyone. I would like to introduce you to our Middle East Open Process Automation Lab at our Saudi Schneider Electric Innovation and Research Center in Dhahran Techno Valley. This lab has been set up by Schneider with and for strategic collaboration partners like Saudi Aramco to provide an infrastructure for interested end users in the Middle East to experiment and test with different concepts and technologies related to open process and next generation automation. With me here, our partner and colleague, Mr. Abdullah Khalifa from Saudi Aramco.
It gives us great pleasure to welcome you to the Middle East Open Process Automation Test Bed to show you some of the activities we are doing in collaboration with the Schneider Electric and other partners. Let's start the tour.
Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed our brief tour of the Middle East OPA Lab at the Saudi Schneider Electric Innovation and Research Center.
Now that we've seen the Aramco Schneider Electric Middle East Open Automation Test Bed. I'm here with Abdullah Al-Khalifah from Aramco. Abdullah, welcome to the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry, for giving us the opportunity to share with you the ongoing effort to develop an OPAF test bed.
It's our pleasure, Abdullah. Can you explain to us, that video is very brief, who are the sponsors of this lab, which is in a big facility in Tehran? So who are the sponsors of the lab?
Well, as a member of the Open Process Automation Forum since 2018, Saudi Aramco plan was to set up an OPAF testing system locally. Saudi Aramco conducted a thorough review of the local system integrators who are engaged with the OPAF and has the capacity to leverage their ongoing OPAF specification development locally. Several options were evaluated, and we found a common ground with Schneider Electric, who has been planning to set up their own local capacity for strategic collaboration with partners such as Saudi Aramco at their Saudi Schneider Electric Innovation and Research Center in Tehran Techno Valley. And the purpose of that is to provide an open infrastructure and leverage their expertise and know-how for interested end user in the region to be able to engage and provide the platform for local technology providers and developers to test and experiment, and also elevate the readiness of the open process automation and next generation automation technologies.
Well, besides the open group, who is participating? What other standards, organizations, or consortiums are contributing to this research, Abdullah?
OPAF itself is a standard of standards, and we are leveraging this standard and technology like OBC UA, IEC 1149 standard, and open to explore any technologies that would support in deriving a universal automation and open automation system.
Okay, well, what businesses are working here, Abdullah? We saw a quick flash of that in the video, but I noticed besides Schneider Electric, there was Aviva and Stahl. And who else is participating?
Well, apart from Schneider Electric and Saudi Aramco at this time, we have initial interest expressed from other end users in the region, and we are working with some component vendor like Stahl, Onyx Contacts, Intel, and others, other suppliers and end users who are interested in the open automation. And we are also planning to connect shortly with some of the local academia institutions, and we are open to partner with other interested organizations who have a unique added value and can contribute on supporting this program.
Okay, you have a slide to kind of illustrate what is the overall objective of this lab, Abdullah. I wonder if you could explain that to us.
Well, the overall objective is to develop a field-proven OPAF compatible prototype system. And if you can please show slide number 1. Can you show slide number 1, please?
Okay, yes, I will. Here we go.
Yeah, basically this diagram shows the overall architecture of the vision of the open process automation system setup that we started to build and we want to expand. And it shows that we have multiple zones all connected together. Each one of those will be used for development and for
testing a different possible different application. This will include on an overall ecosystem of partners and other Middle East operator, third-party suppliers, academia. In terms of technology and application, our focus will be on assessing the real-world benefit and performance of these systems and technologies.
Okay, well, what applications are, obviously Aramco is in the oil and gas business and now also the chemical business. What vertical industries and applications are you beginning with?
Yeah, basically our main focus at this time is oil and gas and petrochemical. However, we believe that the result of the research and the final specification will be applicable and can be used for all industries and applications. The test architecture is designed to accommodate different application based on the interest on the region. So the facility and the strategy and the testing that we are conducted, it will be available and can be used for different industry as required.
So what would be a typical research team that we would find if we were to walk into the lab and visit on any random day?
Well, at the moment, there are cross-functional team of consultant and subject matter expert from Saudi Aramco who has the process control and the IT background and engaged with Schneider who has dedicated some solutions and the architecture and engineers locally, combined with the global consultant and development resources. We are expecting to expand this team with academia to be involved in the future.
That's interesting. I have not heard so much from other labs about academic, oh, some, but that's very interesting. Maybe we can talk about that later. Can you tell us, Abdullah, kind of what your objectives are for moving the research or dealing with the results of this research? I will move this slide along.
Yeah, basically for Saudi Aramco, the result of the test bed research and the study that we are doing and the testing will provide the basis for declaring the readiness and demonstrate key features of the OPAF and support the use of an open automation system in a replacement of legacy system as they come obsolete, and some of the initial field pilot that we are planning to demonstrate the capability of an OPAF at the field. And if you can please show slide number 2. Slide number 2.
Sorry, this one here?
Yeah, this one here. Basically here we are showing the selected application that we have identified, and we are working to implement this application in the test bed. And what we want to demonstrate here, or the key concept, is that we can move from a standalone large system into a distributed DCNs that we can specify for the need of the process, and we can use it to expand existing facility without the need to disrupt or modify or even upgrade the existing. So we want to demonstrate that the open automation system using DCNs can be used for incremental expansion of a certain facility, and they will all work in a heterogeneous way.
Now, I asked you to explain your activities or your plan for activities over the next couple of years. Can you do that, Abdullah?
Over the next 2 years, uh, right now we are finalizing the commissioning of the test bed, the initial phase. A roadmap of the activity for the next 2 years has been discussed, and we have agreed with Schneider on it. And if you can please show slide number 3.
Yeah, it's on the screen now.
Yeah, we have defined a list of use cases for the scope that we have agreed on and defined for year 2000 is to build the basic infrastructure. And we've done that. And we've defined and working on finalizing a list of test cases focused around interoperability, portability, security, and what have you. That will be validating the specification, targeting the field application. So we want to demonstrate that this field application can be supported or can work using the open automation. And we also started to develop a dynamic process model that reflects this application using the 1499 and using the EIA, the ecosystem from Schneider as the engineering tool for the development.
Okay, well, Abdullah, I really thank you for sharing this information. I look forward to you joining our panel discussion shortly.
It was our pleasure, and we thank you for giving us this opportunity, and we're looking forward for the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Now let's continue our around the world trip. From Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, we're going to travel about 10,000 kilometers to Perth, Western Australia. We're going to meet with John Kirkman. He's the managing director of ET Partners, Enterprise Transformation Partners in Perth. And John is also an official of what's called the Industry 4.0 ERDI Test Lab in Perth. This is one of the facilities that's being used to develop open process automation technology. I'll have a brief discussion with John right now, so let's take the second leg of our trip. This is Harry Forbes from ARC Advisory Group. I'm meeting with John Kirkman, Managing Director of Enterprise Transformation Partners. John is in the ERDI Lab in Perth, Western Australia. John, thank you for appearing with us today.
Cheers, Harry. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having us.
John, could you show us the ERDI Lab is involved in a lot of open process automation and other advanced interoperability work. Could you just take folks around the lab for a second and show them what you're doing there?
Yeah, not a problem, Harry. Right now, I'm sitting in the Perth lab. We have two locations, one at the University of Western Australia on their campus, and we've got one here in Perth in the city, which is central and close to all our mining and oil and gas customers, as well as a lot of the vendors that we work with on interoperability work. So right now I'm in the Perth city lab, and I'm sitting in the multi-purpose or mixed purpose area that's set up as a theaterette, often for presentations and demonstrations, when we showcase the work and successes that we've had. But also predominantly we use this for workshops and those type of things with our customers and vendors as we work through various research projects and proof of concept. So I'll just show you around a little bit so you can sort of get a feel for where we are, and then I can take you through and answer any other questions you might have. So here we've got the multi-purpose area. So right now it's set up for a workshop sort of scenario. So we've got whiteboards all around. We've got a few posters up there for a project we're running at the moment with a few mining customers and vendors. Right here, we've got one of 3 comms rooms that we have. So there's not too much equipment in here in the moment, but we'll be seeking to fill this up with a lot of OPAF related technologies over the next few months and start running some proof of concepts and projects around that. Just take you through. This is where a lot of the staff and researchers sit day to day and do their work. So we'll just walk through here. We're now heading out to the front. As you can see, hopefully, we're right on the main street of Perth in the CBD, St George's Terrace. So very well located, makes for easy access for all of our project partners and customers to come in. And this is just the entry area here. There's a few meeting rooms and that sort of thing around. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a good understanding of where we're sitting and the type of facility our lab is. Obviously, doing research, we're always having technology come in and out. And we do a lot of work around software, so there's a lot of cloud hosting and that type of thing as well.
Okay, well, let's just sit down and kind of go through all about this lab. Kirky, who are the sponsors? Can you tell me that?
Yeah, so, yep. Number of sponsors. So probably the best way to sort of give some context to the lab is the Australian government in 2016 recognised the importance of Industry 4.0, probably on two major fronts. To help our industry, manufacturing, oil and gas and mining, which are quite large industries in Australia, to make sure that we kept up with the evolutions in technologies and the operating models that would come off the back of Industry 4.0 and everything to do with that. But also, obviously, technology is an ever-growing industry as well. We want to make sure that Australia was set up to participate in Industry 4.0 from a technology perspective as well and facilitate that. So hence they signed an agreement with the German government around collaboration on Industry 4.0 in 2016. And under the Department of Innovation, Science, Energy and Resources, they established a program called the Industry 4.0 Test Lab Program and provided grants to sponsor the establishment of Industry 4.0 test labs at universities around Australia. So that was a major driving force, the federal government, behind the establishment of the labs. But in terms of other sponsors, we were required to have, industry sponsors as well. So we had 3 mining companies that jumped on board early in the sponsorship, Fortescue Metals Group, South 32 and Goldfields Australia, and also the University of Western Australia and ETP contributed to the startup of the test labs. And we've had 2 more sponsors as well. NERA, the National Energy Resources Australia, which focus on growth in energy sector, and also Mets Ignited, which follow on that focus on innovation and growth in the mining equipment technology services sector as well. So they're our founding sponsors and really helped the establishment of the lab and get the lab operational.
Okay, and besides the open group in your open process automation forum work, what other organizations are you collaborating with in the standards development area?
Yeah, so prior to us getting involved in the open process automation standards a little while ago, we did a fair bit of work with ISA, ANSI ISA, and particularly on ISA 95, the Operations Management Interoperability Standards, IE 62264. So we've been long participating in that, as well as with MESA in terms of the XML implementation of ISA 95. Through our network with the platform Industry 4.0, we're also going to be working with Standards Council Industry 4.0 to make sure that our work can filter through to the greater Industry 4.0 in a formal way, and we'll do that via Standards Australia.
Okay, can you summarize what the overall purpose of the lab is in terms of the overall objectives?
Yeah. So the objectives of the lab is to basically be a catalyst and facilitate the adoption of Industry 4.0 technologies and operating models within primarily the energy and resources sector within Australia. And that's primarily because of our location in Western Australia. They're our biggest industries. Manufacturing is not quite as big an industry in our region of Australia. But as you know, Harry, these standards that are coming out in terms of process control and operations management are more about physical goods value chains, where the one standard supports multiple industries. So a lot of the work we do can be adopted into the manufacturing industries within Australia. And we really focus on interoperability and unlocking value there. So our vision is to basically enable our end users to understand what an interoperable paradigm looks like and how to get there, because it's not something that they've had available to them to date, and how to maneuver through that and educate the end users and the internal solution architects and technology teams, but then also hand in hand work with their vendors and internal technology development teams to enable them to enhance their software or build it to be compliant with those interoperability standards. By enabling that and making that happen probably faster than it would otherwise, we should be able to see benefits in our business, in our industry, in terms of operational performance improvements and those sort of things. So that's our goal.
Well, what about specific industries? Obviously, mining's very big there, but what kind of applications are you working on? Can you give us a feel?
Yeah, so and from I suppose, a functional model, I can't help but talk about the interoperability side of things. Obviously, it's my day-to-day, but it's really all the processes and software that sit in the operational management, manufacturing operations management band. So your scheduling, your resource management, definition management, materials tracking. So all that sort of MES layer or operations management layer, and then obviously through OPAS in the process control layer. So we see interoperability. We see all those functions that currently exist in a business continuing to exist, and Industry 4.0 is just enabling modular best-in-breed technologies that support those processes to communicate in real time, to sort of automate the information exchange and improve the operational responsiveness to what's happening on the ground or what's happening in the market. So if we're looking to use some of the terminology that's probably more readily out there today, digital twins and those type of things all support those type of functions. They're just sort of different ways to, observe the information and deal with it at scale.
Okay, what about the teams that you have? Can you profile kind of the organization, the teams that are in place now, where they're from, and what they're doing?
Yeah, no, not a problem. So it's a blended team. We have a very strong presence in terms of coming from, the IT world, in anything to do with sort of IT application architecture, enterprise architecture, and interoperability at that level. So we're obviously quite happy to see what's happening in OPAS with orchestration and adopting some of those sort of concepts that come out of the IT world that are definitely adding benefit in those type of systems. So we have a very strong sort of origin in that capability. We've also got process control engineers in the team, and then we have people that have experts in industry in terms of mining and oil and gas and LNG. So along with that, we have the University of Western Australia that owns this lab that we operate, and they provide in students and professors and researchers to support various initiatives that they want to look at. So, and I can talk to you a little bit about those a bit later.
Okay. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Where do you see the research going in the next year or two? What are the specific things you're looking at? What are your key objectives?
So right now, some of the projects we've been running over the last 12 months or so are coming to fruition to end. So we'll be publishing a bunch of case studies around, we've basically done some field testing, some lab testing, actual production rollouts of the latest version of ISO 95, which was updated late 2018, early 2019, and BTML version 7, which came out just this year. But because we've been working on those schemas and those standards, we're able to sort of get a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of testing those out and adopting. So we've had some quite a lot of success with that. We're producing some case studies this year that will hopefully foster some further market uptake in that area. One of the other things is we work with a research project called the Future Energy Exports CRC. It's a cooperative research centre. That's a 7-year project where they're looking at energy exports and how do we improve our capability here in Australia. So one of their projects is building a miniature LNG train here in Perth, and we'll be looking to set up the process control for that off a OPAS-based architecture. So that'll be running a real small-scale LNG facility. And what we're also going to do there is we're looking at what we're referring to as an operational digital twin that's really focused on the material flowing through that plant and the physics and the material behavior, looking to reduce issues of build-up of frozen material in the pipelines and in the process, so we can avoid having to close down plants to heat them back up and get them running again. So some pretty sophisticated types of digital twins that will be leveraging and feeding all with information that's based on the Industry 4.0 OPAS interoperability standards.
So what happens to the results of this research, Kirky? Where does it go, and how could, who has access to it, and how could outsiders like me keep up with what you're doing there?
Yeah, so we've just started to produce case studies out of our first major project. So they will be available via our website. We'll be posting case studies up there that anyone can see those case studies to a certain level of detail. Obviously, because we're involved in interoperability, we don't get involved in the IP a lot of the time. That sits inside when any one application. So we're really just trying to help enable, companies that are experts in building software for a specific domain to be able to have their software work in a bigger architecture out of the box. So a lot of the time, the results of the research actually leave with the vendors and the technology participants that go out there and then productize what they've learned and built and showcased in the lab. So, but in those case studies, we mention all the project partners, and technology partners, and then go from there. And the other thing is that we are available to provide services to vendors and users all the time to pass on that knowledge and what we've learned through those case studies. So it's a pretty open sort of book process for us.
Okay. Well, hey, Kirky, I appreciate so much you taking time to be with us, and we look forward to having you participate in the panel discussion that's to follow this session.
Yeah, not a problem, Harry. Thanks for having us, and it was great talking to you, and good to see you again.
Nice to see you, pal. We'll see you in a few minutes in the panel session.
Too easy, mate. We'll still need to get down here to one of the big mines one day.
It's a deal. Okay.
Cheers.
Now onto the final leg of our trip. We're going to go from Perth, 17,000 kilometers, to Houston, Texas, actually the Woodlands, Texas, which is a city outside of Houston. We're going to meet with David DeBerry of ExxonMobil at an ExxonMobil test lab administered by Yokogawa. We'll discuss the work that's been going on there for over a year with ExxonMobil and Yokogawa and a number of other firms. I'm with David DeBerry of ExxonMobil, who's sitting in the ExxonMobil OPA test lab in the Woodlands, Texas. David, thank you for sharing with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here.
David, you have a few slides you'd like to present on the lab. I'm going to share my screen and start to present those. So please tell us what's going on.
Certainly.
Go ahead.
So as a basic foundation for the attendees, we have our OPA testbed architecture. This is the current architecture with the existing vendors that we have brought devices and components and software into our testbed. We show this to make sure that they are recognized for their efforts in supporting us, as well as to enlighten the attendees to what we're doing and what it might look like in a paper form. We have a number of DCNs obviously connected to a network. We're using OPCUA. We have HMIs and other software that we're using for various pieces that constitute a process automation system. So this is sort of the current testbed architecture and the vendors involved.
Okay.
Next slide.
There you go.
So here's a picture of the testbed facility layout. And as you can see, this is a facility that was found by Yokogawa as part of the activity of setting up the test bed as our system integrator. And you can see from the picture to the left, there's sort of a map of that we have offices and we have the lab, we have a meeting space, we have a big warehouse space as well that we can expand into. And then just sort of the size and scale of our facility. And to the right, you can see sort of as it evolved, we had to build the lab from the warehouse space and fill it with the parts and the cabinets and the racks. And then in the last picture, you see some of our Yokogawa teammates working on the system.
Okay.
And the next picture.
Oh, is that, oh, sorry, that's the same one.
No, it's fine. So we operate 4 environments in our test bed, and we learned this. I'll call it a trick. It's not a trick to the folks in the IT world so much, but Lockheed Martin made us aware of the difficulties when you're working in the lab and somebody wants to test some software and somebody else wants to turn the device off. So we separate our lab into 4 environments. 2 of them have simulation. We start in the development part where we plug it in, turn it on, connect to it, poke around in the software. Moving to the test environment where we start working on its interoperability and interaction with other parts of the system. We move to the acceptance world where we really do perform a full integration, and we have simulation there so we can simulate a process and make these parts work as a whole. And then, of course, in the end, we move to what we call the production environment. And we don't really have a production facility here, but the goal here is we get endurance testing and, time just sitting here day and night doing its thing and making sure that things don't change based on time. So this is pretty much the 4 environments in our test lab. They are separated. And that's pretty much that.
Okay, so basically experiments move from left to right as an experiment or some activity progresses.
Yes. Yes. And so, and if you have a problem in acceptance, you might have to go back. And then, so that's why there's sort of a loop in the drawing to show that it's sort of an evolution, but from left to right. Yes.
Dave, you gave us a list of vendors that were working. There are other, ExxonMobil obviously is the lead for this, and Yokogawa is serving as the system integrator.
Yeah, so ExxonMobil Research and Engineering Company set up the test bed. The focus of the research and engineering company is to support downstream primarily. We support the whole company, but we work a lot with the chemical facilities and the refineries. And specifically the section of the world I'm in the process control, automation and process control, that we support their automation needs. So that's where the OPA idea came from. That's where our main support comes from. We also interact with our upstream friends who have a strong interest in what we're doing. They just don't have some of the same reasons for pursuing our program as we do with the downstream facilities. And then, of course, we have the outside companies. Obviously, Yokogawa is our systems integrator who we selected. And we set up this lab in I guess it was operational in late 2019, and we've been operating it since with them. Obviously, we have a lot of vendors, and we're still working on vendors to bring their components, whether they be software, hardware, or other technologies to our world.
So when you talk to people who are potential vendors or whatever, how do you describe the mission statement of the lab? What's your mission statement from ExxonMobil's point of view?
So the test bed serves 2 purposes. The first is to answer questions and develop design and understanding of the technologies to create an open system built from heterogeneous parts. The end goal of the test bed is to get us to field trial. We need to take these components, and while we did a proof of concept and we even did a prototype in a pilot facility, it's a research unit, it's not a production unit. And so for us to use OPA we have to, one, answer the questions, as in any company, mitigate any risks and understand the design criteria and architecture, and then get ready to deploy it in a real facility in a field trial. And so that is really the two pieces. When you come here, it's about helping us answer our questions, and then getting to a point where we could conduct a field trial.
Okay, and that would be on an actual production
Yes.
unit, not a pilot.
No, it is we are looking at real facilities that make product that gets sold by our company. It's part of our business. And that is the part of the field trial that we need. That, some people call it mileage, but you've got to be able to show that it works and it is beneficial, and bring something to our business.
Okay, what application are you using as a demo or as a prototype here in the test bed?
So in the test bed, we decided to pick a separations tower. It's a type of equipment that's very common in chemical and refining facilities. The understanding of the models and the dynamics behind it are well understood within industry, and it was easy to set up. It also doesn't introduce any sort of IP concerns or issues when we have people look at it, that we aren't doing something that isn't just sort of a run-of-the-mill chemical process. And so this is sort of the follow-on to the fired heater we did in the proof of concept. Obviously, the prototype was in a research facility that tested catalyst, which wasn't. But the test bed is about, right now, the separations tower. Our collaboration partners might bring in other processes because they come from other industries in the marketplace.
Okay. In terms of a normal day, if I was to walk in your lab there, who would I see, and what would the research team be like, and what would they be working on?
So the test bed is supported by two teams of people. We try and act as one research team, but the ExxonMobil team is comprised of discipline experts from systems, instrumentation, applications, advanced control. We have IT participation so that we can look at and evaluate some of the IT technologies that are creeping into this OT world. The Yokogawa team is also a multidisciplinary team made up of people who can perform the integration and the innovation necessary to do the test bed. So we have people who understand security and systems, control logic, programming, shall we say, beyond the general user environment. So, this is sort of what we do. We get together as a group, we come in, we consult with our peers on specific issues. We're using hyper-converged server systems. We're using devices that have programming in them. Some are running Linux. We have security issues that we want to address. We think there should be more intrinsic security built into DCS and automation systems in general. So those are the kind of things. So you came here during a normal day. There's somewhere between 5 and 8 people here. There would be Exxon people, Yokogawa people. Thankfully, and given the current situation with the COVID pandemic, we also have the ability to work remotely. And so we can collaborate remotely, and to a point where you might not actually have to be here to collaborate with your peers.
What are your plans, and what activities are you doing to share the findings of this research with the Open Process Automation Forum and the other members who maybe are not participating directly in this lab?
So we have two groups of people that we feel the lab helps support. Obviously, ExxonMobil has an interest for our business, but it is grounded in the OPA forum standards, known as OPAF. And it's really important that we follow the standards, that we work with the standards. Part of the test bed is to actually try out these standards, implement products, and learn the techniques for using those standards. Standards are documents full of words, and then somebody has to do the practical work of seeing how it works together and how to integrate it. And so the goal here is we learn things and we go back to the forum and we tell them what we've learned. We tell them a little bit about what we're doing and what we learned from it, and hopefully we feed back and make the standards stronger, and utilization of standards being more successful. The second is our collaboration partners. We have 7 collaboration partners who are all end users who are members of the forum as well, and they come from different industries in the marketplace. There's a little overlap between us and a few of them, and then there's folks who we're not in the paper business, like the Georgia Pacific folks. Obviously, Aramco Services, BASF, ConocoPhillips, Georgia Pacific, Linde, Dow, and Reliance Industries are partners in the collaboration. They come from different worlds and they have potentially different needs. And so the goal is they can conduct their experiments. We share the information on the use of automation system to solve these kind of automation problems, and then also take those learnings back to the forum to make the standards and the forum stronger.
Okay, I know there's no commitment at this time, I can assume that, but you mentioned possible field trial. That's part of the steps you all take normally in qualifying any technology for use in your operations.
Yes, we've down selected. We're looking at 3 different processes right now, and going through the management, gearing up for that. Now, part of that is the test bed has to deliver some answers, and then we also need to make sure that we're picking the right kind of process to bring OPA to.
So I know you've publicized that. What's the current thinking of what year that field trial will be right now?
So we're hoping
assuming you get the answer.
Yeah. So we're hoping to start the engineering phase of our field trial project later this year. Okay. And so we hope to go through the management process to get approval, and I guess it depends on the process and the pace that we can achieve. I would like to think by the end of 22 we could have a conversation about a running process, but I can't promise that at this time. The engineering's still left to do, approval's still left to be gotten.
A set of hurdles to qualify anything for use in those kind of units, obviously.
That's right. That's right. And so the test bed gives us the answers to performance and meeting of requirements to run a process, and then our business helps us select the right process and funds us to go do that work. And so that we're hoping by the end of this year we'll be in engineering, progressing to putting it in somewhere.
Good. Well, I appreciate it. The nice part of having a virtual meeting and a virtual ARC forum, David, is that we can visit you in place. I hope you'll stick with us here, because we're going to have a live panel discussion and a live question and answer session. So I hope you'll stick around, and folks will be seeing you later.
Well, thank you. And I am looking forward to the conversations and the questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing with us, David. Take care.
You too.
The final leg of our journey is from Houston back to Orlando, where all of these participants in various labs are going to be live for discussion and for questions from you. So please feel free to enter any questions that you would like to address to these panelists in the chat window, and we will make sure that they get to answer them. Thanks a lot, and let's move to the live session. Hello?
Hello.
Ask all our panelists to please unmute themselves and activate their video. I'm Harry Forbes. Our panelists for this session include all the people that we met. And in addition, Sharul Rashid from Petronas is here, and Jason Norris from Phoenix Contact. So I will start with Sharul. And also I said to chat window, please put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom and we will address them to the folks here. Sharul Rashid is from Petronas, the national oil company of Malaysia, and he's a frequent attendee of the live ARC forum, person to person in Orlando. Sharul, thank you for attending the virtual event. You have a brief announcement you wanted to make, and I give you the floor for a couple minutes now to make that announcement.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, everybody. I guess next stop is Malaysia. It's about 17 hours flying time. In Malaysia, it's 4:50 a.m. in the morning. Okay. I would like to make a very important announcement. Petronas is set to make significant progress in autonomous operations by establishing test bed, followed by industrial field trial based on the emerging open process automation standard technologies. In the process, we have selected to collaborate with Yokogawa, the leading global provider of industrial automation solutions. The test bed and field trial will take place at Institute of Technology Petroleum Training Plant. I would like to stress training plant. Consists of upstream plant and downstream plant located in Batu Rakit, Terengganu, Malaysia. And the OPAF field trial will test system multi-vendor interoperability, cybersecurity and advanced functionality in real-world application, which includes evaluation of the use of 5G technologies and its robustness in the OPAF environment, integration of IoT into OPAF environment as part of the data liberalization initiative by Petronas, maintenance integration of multiple remote autonomous operation sites, as well as distributed control system DCS as fiscal flow computing platform. And last but not least, the collaboration further strengthened Petronas' position in digital readiness for Industry 4.0 operational model, supported by our counterpart, Yokogawa Global's expertise and network. Thank you, Harry. Thank you.
Great. Sharul, thank you very much for your announcement. And I guess what we'll do is next year, whether we're in person or whether we're doing it virtually, I hope in person, we will look forward to hearing about your progress there.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
I'm also going to put on the spot Jason Norris because we didn't talk about Phoenix Contact specifically during these lab session interviews. So Jason, maybe you could explain a little bit very briefly about the role of Phoenix Contact in these lab projects and the previous projects that we've talked about in past years at the forum.
Sure, yes, thank you, Harry, for the opportunity. A couple years ago, we released, let's say, a next generation to our controller business. So Phoenix Contact has been providing controllers to the market primarily for factory automation and automotive industries for many years, demonstrated success in, let's say, that focused market area. So is looking forward to what a next generation controller would look like and who we want to reach outside of just the focused factory automation markets. The concept of a platform we call PLC Next was really brought to life. And the fundamental principle of PLC Next is that it is an open controller to allow people to build their applications on in the ways that they're most comfortable. So it's a Linux-based system where we bring some value to that by offering a runtime environment that eases a lot of the entry burdens for the casual, let's say, programmer or user, by things like managing runtime services, operating system services and so forth. So if you look at it from a philosophical perspective, what we're trying to do is open up the control domain to not require proprietary tools, not require a dedicated tool chain that locks you into a particular ecosystem. So at the time that ExxonMobil was looking to bring some open process automation prototypes or proof of concepts to life is the time that we're starting to make some announcements into the market about this. So for the collaboration partners, we're really using this PLC Next philosophy and ecosystem as the basis to bring these pilot applications to life. And we do so by allowing the system integrators and the end user the authority to install their own software onto the controller to bring the applications to life that they desire.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jason. I appreciate it. We've got some questions from the audience, and please continue to deliver them. I'm gonna, because we've got some really good questions, I'm gonna suspend my question list and I'm gonna go to their questions, and I'll save my questions for Thursday, I guess. One question is, and this really goes to anyone from the labs, please give examples of how labs have improved standards and how does this differ from system integration more toward interoperability. So I don't know if anybody has a comment. I'll throw that open to everybody here, but the question really is, how have labs improved the standards, and how is that different from just plain old systems integration? Anybody want to touch that one?
I'll jump in, Harry. The challenge is always, how do you turn a standard, some set of paragraphs or pages into a working product? And it's really important that in the lab world, we actually give it a try. And sometimes what you find is the words aren't quite adequate. There may be a general description or a general solution. And in a practical world, you have to find a specific answer to the problem. So I think really they kind of go hand in hand in many ways, but just to validate that the standard works and that there isn't something missing, or you don't have to know some trick to get it to function.
Okay, here's a direct, simply stated question. Who will be responsible for safety and reliability of open automation in the hydrocarbon industry? So that I'll ask that to either the end users maybe first, or because you guys are the ones operating the facility. So that's probably a question you're getting from management, I would imagine, or you would expect to answer in this context.
That's definitely the question we have to answer. The answer is that the responsibility for those features are the end users. Suppliers provide products and they provide possible solutions, but it's really the end users have to understand how it gets applied and how it can be done safely. There's no real way to delegate that from the end user responsibility. And I think there's some superstition in the marketplace about that kind of, when you ask that kind of question, what you're expecting is that someone else is responsible today. And that's not really the truth. The end user is always responsible.
Okay, there's another question here about the collaboration partners. And I know, Abdullah, I think in terms of OPAF, that is Saudi Aramco classified as a collaboration partner? There's a set of companies that are working together at some degree. And the question is, how are the collaborative partners benefiting from this process? And obviously you have your own work going on now, Abdullah, but why did Aramco decide to become a collaboration partner?
Well, I guess just going back to the previous question also, just to add a few comments.
Go ahead.
Regarding the responsibility for the safety and reliability of the system. That's why it is important, and that's why end users are participating in the forum, in the development of the standard, to ensure that the specification, the standard ensure that the final deliverables of the system meet the stated performance requirement and safety requirement. And regarding this question, the collaborating partners, they benefit from working together by sharing information and discussing the requirement, aligning the effort in order to derive and ensure that the specifications and the standard and the final product will meet the ultimate intent of what the end users are looking for.
Okay, I have another question more for end users, but I'm offered to suppliers as well. Pretty well simply stated. What is the business case behind open automation? Is your current base of DCS and Historian not serving the purpose? And here's a good question. What is your message for newer plants where investments in DCS is recent and Historian serves as an open data lake? I'll throw that out to the whole panel. I know that's not a new question. Maybe who wants to dive in on that one?
Let me try. Okay. Okay. From Petronas. Okay. First, I would like to touch a little bit the one that talking about safety, and safety is actually not covered by OPAF. Huh? Safeguarding is not the scope of OPAF. Okay,
well, in the sense that yes, process safety is not.
Yeah. So bear in mind, process safety is covered by safeguarding system, which never be part of the scope of OPAF. So be rest assured of that one. Okay. Just want to touch on that one. Okay. Now, next, your question is about what is the value proposition for this one. It is very hard for us for Petronas to actually influence our stakeholders, because they keep on asking what is the value from this. But I always believe that the open platform, open process automation, interoperable, cyber-secured by design is the way to go for the DCS of the future. No other choices for the future. That is my belief, and we should be holding on that belief. Thank you, Harry.
Harry, if I could pick up on that. As far as the business case goes, in Yokogawa, we view this move to open technology and what OPAF is doing as inevitable. We have systems, DCS systems have been running and operating plants for decades, and they partially upgrade or fully upgrade. But since the first systems went out, we've seen information technology and commercial off-the-shelf products come in, whether it's in the HIS operator stations, whether it's in networking, whether it's engineering tools, the operating systems involved. They all used to be proprietary decades ago. And each decade, something else, we see commercially available technology come in. In this case, I think with OPAF, it's bringing it into the controller, it's bringing it into the software to make it more interoperable, interchangeable, and to really separate the software and hardware and using modern technology. So in that case, it's just a natural progression. I think it's going to offer this particular inflection point will offer a lot of capability as it gets down to the real control software and architecture of the system.
Well, let me follow up with another good question. In real world OPAS applications, who will be the system integrator? Will it be the end user? Will it be a supplier? Who is it likely to be?
So I think it's all of those. I think the current marketplace has vendors who can definitely be systems integrators. I think there is a market of system integrators that help companies execute their projects right now that do not sell products. They have particular brands that they are familiar with and the technologies they can use. I think there are some end users who will likely be able to do some of their own system integration, and it really depends on what kind of complexity and how many of the features you want to use. So I think right now it's really not that different from the current situation, because some end users have a lot of capability to do their own system integration. We do a lot of integration right now. I think it you know, the interesting part about this change is that it allows for, you know, intellectual property and independent manufacturers to bring, you know, their components, whether it be software or hardware, into this marketplace and not be blocked by IP and technologies. I think it's, you know, the system integration role is very important, especially when you get to a system built of heterogeneous parts. You have to answer some questions that vendors have provided answers to, but there again, we have choices when we do this. So I think it's a positive move. I definitely think there's some automation vendors who have the capability to be system integrators.
Okay, I've got a couple questions
on
here
camera.
on certification, and maybe I'll combine them here. OPAF is developing certification tests for the standard, and are these labs going to be used to test and improve this certification process? And another one, maybe related to this, is could you give us an overview of the certification process? So maybe the lab folks, or actually this could be the suppliers as well, but the question is the certification process. What is the certification process going to be, and what role are the labs going to play in this? Unfortunately, we don't have Kirky here. I don't know what happened to Kirky, but I know he's going to be engaged in that. I know who would like to pick this one up.
Maybe I can just start it. You know, the certification program for OPAF is run as part of the Open Group. And this is something they have great expertise in, and they're helping the forum start this up. A test lab like ERDI, where Kirky works in Perth, Australia, they are going to be certified as a test lab to execute those. With Yokogawa, we don't intend to have our labs be test labs right now. I guess it could be. But I think the value we can help with this, and certification is very important, is the things we learn. We want to be able to feed back, and as contributors, you know, in the OPAF organization, to the OPAF standard, we're going to take what we learned back in, whether it's to help write better certification tests or write better standards. We hope that will bolster that.
Any other comments? I've got plenty of good questions. This is a question addressed to the automation end users. That would be David or Abdullah or Sharul. Could you explain how the test bed is being used to assess specific criteria in terms of readiness to move on to the next phase of field trials? What are your criteria? What can you lump those for us? I know you have a process for doing that, but can you talk about what the criteria are that you're going to be evaluating this work on?
Well, Harry, if I can give a start on this, the open automation concept started by defining certain characteristic of that define the vision of what open automation system should provide. And these characteristics are the criteria that the prototype or the test labs is trying to demonstrate, to show that this future system can provide the defined characteristics. And in order to evaluate how the open automation system provide or meet this requirement, it has to be compared or benchmarked to current automation system, which has certain performance and certain characteristic, and the comparing a performance with this defined characteristic with what we have today will be like the basic or the entry point of evaluating how the system is ready for the readiness of it in terms of meeting an actual facility performance, in addition to providing these promises or these additional characteristic which has been defined for a good reason, to solve or to overcome a common pain points or common issues that all end users are facing. The automation systems, since they were introduced in early 70s, have evolved over the years, leveraging technologies, taking advantage of newer technologies. We've started to see some sort of leveraging or tapping into IT technologies. All these evolution steps that the automation system went through was introduced to provide a better performance, a safer system, a more reliable system. And what the OPAF is providing now is more of a natural evolution that is needed or imminent to address pain point or issues that end users are facing. Add to this, the whole industry now is moving towards the Industry 4 or the digital transformation. So the open automation system or this next generation automation system is evolving or being developed with all these in mind. It addresses current challenge point, and it to provide the infrastructure or the technology that make automation system easily integrated into the new arena of digital transformation. So all these changes are imminent, and it need to be addressed to be ready to have your automation system serving the main objective rather than staying as an isolated island. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that for us, the test bed is where we can measure performance. Can we run a facility with this technology? Does it provide the information and the capability to our operations folks and the engineers who manage the processes? And then the second piece is, does it bring benefit to the business? Is this, the technology is about benefit. We take advantage of the new technologies. Well, we do like the technologies, but we're not doing it because we love the technologies. We're doing it because they hold promise to bring something more to our companies. We can unlock value and efficiency and just a better type of automation system, and keeping up with the times.
David, can I squeeze you a little on that? Can you?
Yeah. Okay.
Can you drill down one more level and tell me what are the kind of benefit buckets you're looking at?
So I'll give you. So these are some of the sprints we're doing in our process right now. we're looking at alarm systems. How do we implement alarm systems different now that we know about advanced alarming and some of the other capabilities that some systems allow us to do today? And a lot of times they're brought to by third-party systems. Why can't it be integrated with the system? The idea that the hardware grows old and I need more capability, or it fails and I have to replace it. Well, what if I didn't have to buy the same make and model? And these are operational issues that we would be looking at. So we get a natural evolution in those cases. Let's see, we're looking at obviously the OPC-UA is a very large standard, and there's a lot of capabilities there. And so when you talk about things like security, and you talk about OPC-UA, and you talk about Redfish for system management, these are things that don't exist in most of the current products. There are some new products coming out that have some of these features, but they don't have all of them. And so we want to understand how to use them. Are they beneficial? What's lacking in some of these things? So some of the standards that the OPAF encompasses really are kind of new. So in many cases, the standards bodies are willing to adopt some of our needs for data models and things like that. So you think about Redfish, Redfish for a server is one thing. What does Redfish on a controller need to have in its data set? And so those are the kind of things that we're sort of stress testing. There's different architectures that are possible. So some of the things we're doing is, can you measure the effect of software on the processor, and can you measure the effect of a different architecture on the network? And these are all really important prospects when you start thinking about how to build a system. And so those are the kind of things, we're doing in our test bed. And, the collaboration partners, we had a meeting today with the collaboration partners. And so we meet regularly, we discuss our experiences, we talk about the kinds of things we want to explore. And it's really about, if you can answer these questions, you have some sense that you can actually have a performant and a reliable system that meets the criteria of the actual company or the operation you're going to automate.
Okay,
that?
That's good. I want to welcome John Kirkman. Kirk, you're welcome. It's 5 a.m. there in Perth. A question we had, I think, before you were able to join us was, who do you envision being a system integrator, serving as system integrator on these kind of open process automation projects going forward? You are a systems integrator pretty much now. That's kind of your business. How would you feel about taking on that kind of role in the automation space?
Yeah, thanks, Harry. And yeah, sorry I'm late. Got the times mixed up a little bit. Yeah, so from a system integrator, I think from my visibility, which is not the same as, Dave and the other guys that have sort of been working in labs for a bit longer, but I think the same group of companies that are system integrators now have the opportunity to be the system integrators in the future. But I see that the model changes a little bit with more the owners team needing to take responsibility earlier in a greenfields construction project of a plant to determine requirements and architecture a little bit deeper than they would have to today, when it can be outsourced to the engineering company and the system integrator with some guidance around your preferred product vendor, because obviously that's not going to be the direction you can really provide someone in the future and get the benefits of an open automation architecture. So like the Open Process Automation Forum and Standards team are looking at what happens in the IT world in terms of orchestration and leveraging some of the concepts up there, we also have to look to their approaches to doing enterprise architecture and how do they deal with these multi-vendor, multi-system approaches to design and select and architect a technology stack that's made up of multiple modules from multiple vendors that all have different characteristics that give you the optimal outcome when you go and actually configure and implement and install and maintain and upgrade over the life of the asset. So I think the same system integrators can play in that field, but they have to make an investment in time and thinking, and there's going to be a transition period to be able to become, you know, best in class in that world. And the same cookie cutter approach that's used traditionally, I don't think is going to serve people well, because it's going to be very different in terms of that approach and managing multi-vendor, you know, multi-module architecture.
Okay, Nidal, I wonder if you would like to weigh in on this a little bit, because the facility that you had, we had the little video tour of your facility in Dhahran, and it was a systems integration facility as well as a research facility. So is there anything, how do you see this business, or the, you know, your systems integration work changing as process automation transitions more and more to open process automation? And you're muted, Nidal.
Yes, hi, Harry, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a question that everybody, especially on the vendor side, I mean, is trying to figure out, is how will we be playing in this future open process automation based type of world? Is, you know, how do you play in system integration? How do you add value? How do you differentiate what you can provide compared to what others are able to do? I think this is something that I don't think anybody, or at least anybody who can figure the answer to this question the soonest, will probably have an advantage compared to others. So I don't think, you know, we have the answer for this. This is a matter, I mean, or part of, let's say, why we're starting early to work with, you know, end users and other partners to try and figure this out. This is really one of the questions that we're thinking is, how can be working as profitable, you know, system integrators, for example? What will be the right business model? How do we differentiate our offering? So I think, again, the jury is open on this one. I don't think we have the answer at the moment.
Okay, here's another question. Refers to the 40X suite, which is a open source IEC 61499 control IDE and runtime. And the question is, that would seem to be a natural choice for open process automation, and what's the state of working with that particular tool within the open process automation forum? No, is anybody? I'm just throwing that one out on the floor. I don't know.
So we use 4DIAC in our proof of concept, specifically because it was open source, and it gave us an alternative to the 61499 product that we were using, that Schneider now owns, which is the EcoRT and the EAE products. Part of, you know, using 4DIAC was to test the portability and interchangeability of software that that we think is a valuable attribute. Mm-hmm. As far as using an open source version of any particular kind, when it comes to the 61499 software standard, there are very few vendors of that software. I would say that there is somewhat limited industrial usage of it, although we feel comfortable, having tested it and tried it out, that it will work in a continuous hydrocarbon type process without issues. It's a different way of thinking of how control code works. As far as endorsing 4DIAC, we definitely think they have a good product, but from an ExxonMobil perspective, we don't want to pick the winners. The marketplace will pick the winners. We want choice, which means you can't have just one winner. And so, I mean, one of the key pieces for us, and you'll hear this if you attend the forum meetings with ExxonMobil present, we want choice. we want choice for hardware, we want choice in software, we want choice in IO, we want choice in, you know, whatever it might be. And because that, we think, brings a more competitive and a stronger marketplace. It allows for people to innovate. So, you know, the marketplace will decide, and we will push the marketplace the way we want to go as terms of the products that we want to buy. And as far as whether 4-diac is a good idea or not, that the marketplace will decide. Yeah.
I'd just add a point on that, David, that if you look across especially the more IT-oriented parts of the market where open source is used, it's used in the context of, sorry for the background noise if you can hear that. There's a project that's open source, and then there are products that use it that are commercial and supported. There are people that kind of roll their own, and Kirky, you might be one of those kind of folks too, who, you know, take the code right off of GitHub and rebuild it and use it. But a lot of folks are looking for commercial support for components that they use that way. Let's see. We have a couple more minutes. I have a kind of I have a technical question that I think I'm going to hold on this. But there's a question I'd like to ask folks just very briefly, and that is, one of the things that we've learned this year is that the software supply chain is risky. We learned that through the SolarWinds disaster or fiasco, and we've always been in the kind of the way of trusting our software suppliers, whoever handed it over to us, and not really looking beyond that in the chain. So maybe I'll throw this out to anybody on the OPAF group here, since many of you are deeply involved. You know, how can OPAF help with that? You know, I think, you know, the question I'm asking is that, you know, we had some software we had to trust for our DCS, whether it came from Schneider Electric or Yokogawa. You really have to trust it, and you don't know as an end user what's deeper into that. You know that they have a deep software supply chain. So maybe rather than ask how OPAF can do that, what about the suppliers? What are you asking your software suppliers now about this question? That's maybe an unfair question to kind of spring at the last minute, but does anybody want to touch that piece of junk?
I'll touch it from a cybersecurity perspective. The thing that we realized with the systems, in many of our systems, are legacy that were, you know, they were engineered in the 80s. Some of them have probably been updated in the 90s over the last, you know, 25, 30 years. You know, the challenge is security was not the same concern back then as it is today. And so, you know, from our perspective, the moment you power it up, the processes have to be secure. And so that's how we're looking at security. And there's a security subcommittee within the forum in the technical working group. And, you know, they're looking at the IC 62443, the NIST framework, trying to make sure the practices are there. Obviously, with the SolarWinds thing. And I mean, if you go all the way back to Stuxnet, that's when we should have all woken up and said, uh-oh, that, you know, it's very possible that a bad actor might introduce something to our world, and it comes through a supply chain, and it could be hardware or software. And these are the kind of things that this is the reality of today. And that's why we think security should be built into the system from the ground up. The second you power it on, it should start checking that its firmware is okay, and it should check that the OS is okay, and that the applications it's running are okay, and the data it's accessing are okay. And when you apply a patch, you know, the IT world is looking at these kinds of solutions, and I know some of that has been mentioned in some of the ARC in the last couple of years. There's some people who are presenting in this year's forum that are talking about these kinds of, how do you know the software is what it's purported to be. And so these are the kind of things that have to be built into our systems. And whether IT or OT, it's very, very important. So security from the ground up is the root of that. We can't live in a world that doesn't have that. It's,
Well, I know that's true, but we do,
Yeah, well, we're going to live in a world. We're going to have to learn how to survive in a world and how to manage a world that has those kinds of issues. And that is just, that door's been opened. We can't close it. So
that is true. Well, we are out of time. And so recognizing that you all are from wildly different time zones, anything from, I just want to thank you for making yourselves available for this live session. I want to thank our audience for your attention. An important announcement, if you are interested in this topic, Thursday at 10 a.m., you can join the forum in track 1, and the Open Process Automation Forum is going to present an update by some of their leaders, some of their responsible leaders, their task team or task force leaders will be talking about both their status right now and their direction for the next year or so. So if you're interested in the topic, please be sure to tune into that session. That's Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, United States. And also there are any number of other sessions in this forum that I think you'll find of interest. So take a look at the program and see what else you'd like to attend. And finally, thank you very much, all of you, for participating. You've been very generous with your time and effort in this, and it's really made it, I think, useful for our audience. So thank you all very much. We give you a virtual round of applause because I don't think the audience can approve, but thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, Dave, I think we can wrap it up.